Nancy McKeon became a television star before most people knew her real story. Best known for playing Jo Polniaczek on the hit sitcom The Facts of Life, she grew up under the spotlight while facing pressures few viewers ever saw. Decades after becoming one of television's most recognizable young actresses, her life has taken unexpected turns both on and off the screen. Now, as she approaches 61 in 2026, many fans are asking the same question: what really happened to Nancy McKeon after the cameras stopped rolling? Long before millions of television viewers knew her name, Nancy McKeon was simply a young girl with a dream and a family that believed in her abilities. Born on April 4, 1966, in New York, Nancy entered a world where hard work and determination were highly valued. Creativity was encouraged in her home, and performing soon became a natural part of her life. While many children spent their days playing in schoolyards, Nancy was already beginning a journey that would lead her into one of the most competitive industries in America. Her parents recognized her talent at an early age. They saw confidence, energy, and a natural comfort in front of people. Those qualities would soon open doors. As a young child, Nancy began appearing in commercials. These early jobs may have seemed small, but they taught valuable lessons. Every audition brought new experiences. Every commercial shoot revealed another piece of how the entertainment business worked. The cameras, bright lights, and busy production sets became familiar surroundings. However, success did not come overnight. Like countless young performers, Nancy faced rejection. Auditions often ended without a callback. Opportunities sometimes disappeared as quickly as they appeared. Yet each disappointment became part of her education. Instead of giving up, she continued learning. The entertainment industry demanded patience. It demanded resilience. Most importantly, it demanded persistence. As the years passed, Nancy developed skills that set her apart from many young performers. She learned how to deliver lines naturally. She learned how to express emotion on camera. She learned how to remain professional even when situations became stressful. These qualities slowly began attracting attention. Meanwhile, her family remained an important source of support. The balance between school, family responsibilities, and acting work was not always easy. Long days often meant moving between auditions, classes, and television projects. For a child, that schedule could be exhausting. Yet Nancy continued pushing forward. The late 1970s brought important changes. Television was becoming one of America's most powerful forms of entertainment. Networks were searching for fresh young talent. Producers wanted performers who could connect with audiences in a genuine way. Nancy fit that description perfectly. Her growing experience helped her appear more confident in front of the camera. Casting directors started noticing something unique about her performances. She had a natural presence that felt authentic. Instead of trying to impress audiences, she simply seemed real. That quality became one of her greatest strengths. As opportunities increased, Nancy began appearing in television projects that expanded her visibility within Hollywood. Each role gave her additional experience. Each appearance introduced her to new industry professionals. Slowly but surely, her reputation was growing. Behind the scenes, however, the journey remained challenging. Young actors often face enormous pressure. They must compete against hundreds of other performers for the same opportunities. They must memorize lines, attend auditions, and remain focused while still growing up. Nancy was no exception. There were moments of uncertainty. Moments when the future seemed impossible to predict. But every challenge strengthened her determination. As the audience watches old photographs and archival footage from those years, a pattern becomes clear. Nancy was building the foundation for something much bigger than she could have imagined. Her talent was maturing. Her confidence was increasing. And Hollywood was paying attention. By the beginning of the 1980s, the entertainment industry was changing rapidly. Family sitcoms were becoming major television successes. Networks were searching for characters who felt relatable and authentic. At the same time, Nancy was reaching an important stage in her career. She was no longer simply a child appearing in commercials. She was becoming a serious young actress. Industry insiders began recognizing her potential. Casting directors remembered her. Producers saw possibilities. The years of hard work were finally beginning to create real momentum. Then came the opportunity that would alter everything. A popular television series was preparing for a major change. New characters were needed. Fresh energy was required. Producers wanted someone capable of bringing strength, personality, and authenticity to the screen. Nancy auditioned. Like every audition before it, there were no guarantees. Countless performers wanted the role. The competition was intense. Yet something happened when Nancy stepped in front of the decision-makers. She stood out. Her confidence felt natural. Her delivery felt genuine. Most importantly, she brought a unique spirit that matched exactly what the producers were searching for. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Every commercial, every rejection, every lesson learned, every challenge overcome. They had all been preparing her for a single opportunity. At the time, Nancy could not have known what was waiting ahead. She could not have known that millions of viewers would soon recognize her face. She could not have known that one television character would become part of popular culture for generations. The young girl who once struggled through auditions was now standing at the edge of a remarkable breakthrough. Her life was about to change. Her career was about to reach heights she had never imagined. And the role that would make Nancy McKeon famous was finally within reach, but it would also change her life forever. The opportunity Nancy McKeon had worked toward for years finally arrived in 1980. When she joined The Facts of Life, few could have predicted how important the role would become not only for her career, but for television history itself. The series, a spin-off of the popular sitcom Different Strokes, followed a group of young girls attending boarding school and learning life's lessons together. The show already had an audience, but producers believed new characters could bring fresh energy to the story. One of those new characters was Jo Polniaczek. Jo was different from many female television characters of the time. She was tough, independent, outspoken, and unafraid to challenge authority. She wore leather jackets, spoke her mind, and refused to fit into traditional expectations. The character immediately stood out. And so did Nancy. From her first appearances, audiences connected with Jo's personality. Young viewers saw someone who felt real. Someone who struggled, made mistakes, and stood up for herself. As ratings improved, Jo quickly became one of the show's most popular characters. For Nancy, the change was dramatic. Almost overnight, she went from being a promising young actress to a recognizable television star. Fans began writing letters. Magazines featured her photographs. Television viewers across America knew exactly who she was. As episodes aired week after week, Nancy became closely associated with the role. Her performance helped shape Jo into one of the most memorable characters of the 1980s. The success was exciting, but it also brought challenges. Life on a successful television series was demanding. Production schedules were intense. Cast members spent long hours rehearsing scenes, filming episodes, and participating in promotional activities. While many teenagers were focused on school dances and weekend plans, Nancy was balancing education with the responsibilities of a hit television show. The pressure was constant, yet she handled it with remarkable maturity. Behind the scenes, strong friendships developed among the cast members. Spending years together on set created bonds that often felt like family. Those relationships helped make the chemistry on screen feel authentic. Viewers could sense it. The laughter felt genuine. The emotional moments felt believable. The audience wasn't just watching actors perform. They were watching a group that genuinely cared about one another. As the series continued through the 1980s, Nancy's confidence as a performer grew stronger. Each season brought new storylines and new opportunities to explore Jo's personality. The character evolved, and so did the actress playing her. Critics began noticing Nancy's ability to balance humor and emotion. She could deliver a funny line one moment and handle a serious, dramatic scene the next. That versatility became one of her greatest strengths. Soon, producers outside of The Facts of Life started paying attention. Television movies and special projects began appearing on her schedule. These opportunities allowed Nancy to demonstrate that she was capable of much more than a single role. While audiences loved Jo Polniaczek, Nancy wanted to continue growing as an actress. She understood a challenge that many television stars eventually face. Success can become a trap. The more popular a character becomes, the harder it can be for audiences to see the actor as anyone else. This phenomenon, often called typecasting, has affected countless performers throughout television history. Nancy was aware of the risk. However, she remained focused on improving her craft rather than worrying about the future. Throughout the decade, The Facts of Life remained one of television's most familiar programs. Millions of viewers tuned in to follow the lives of the characters. For many fans, Jo represented confidence and independence. For others, she represented someone who refused to conform. The character became part of American popular culture. Years after episodes aired, audiences would still remember her. As the show's popularity continued, Nancy experienced the rewards and pressures of celebrity life. Public appearances attracted crowds. Interviews became common. Her image appeared in magazines and entertainment publications across the country. Yet despite her growing fame, those who worked with her often described her as grounded and professional. She remembered the difficult years before success. She remembered the auditions. She remembered the uncertainty. Those experiences helped keep her perspective intact. Still, nothing lasts forever in television. By the late 1980s, The Facts of Life was approaching the end of its remarkable run. The cast had grown older. The industry was changing. New programs were capturing audience attention. Eventually, the moment arrived. After years of success, the series came to an end. For viewers, it marked the conclusion of a beloved chapter in television history. For Nancy, it marked the beginning of a new challenge. The role that had made her famous was now behind her. The character audiences adored would always be part of her legacy. But the future remained uncertain. Many former child stars struggled after leaving hit shows. Some never escaped the shadow of their most famous roles. Nancy now faced the same crossroads. Would she remain forever known as Jo Polniaczek? Or could she create an entirely new chapter in her career? As one chapter of television history came to an end, Nancy faced a difficult question: what comes after becoming an icon? When The Facts of Life ended in 1988, Nancy McKeon faced a challenge that has defined the careers of many television stars. For nearly a decade, audiences had known her as Jo Polniaczek. The character had become a cultural icon. Millions of viewers associated Nancy with the tough, independent teenager they had watched grow up on screen. Now, that chapter was over. Many actors struggle after leaving a successful series. Some spend years trying to recreate the same success. Others disappear from the spotlight entirely. Nancy chose a different path. Instead of chasing fame, she focused on building a career that would last. The transition was not easy. Hollywood often places actors into categories. Once someone becomes famous for a particular role, producers may find it difficult to imagine them as anyone else. Nancy understood this reality. Rather than fighting against it publicly, she concentrated on finding projects that allowed her to grow as a performer. During the late 1980s and throughout the 1990s, she appeared in a variety of television films and dramatic productions. These projects gave her opportunities to explore characters that were very different from Jo. Each role became a chance to prove her versatility. Each performance demonstrated that she was more than a sitcom star. Audiences who followed her career began noticing the change. The young actress who once delivered quick jokes and teenage wisdom on a comedy series was now tackling more serious material. As television evolved, Nancy evolved with it. The entertainment industry of the 1990s looked very different from the one she had entered as a child. Cable television was expanding. New networks were emerging. Competition among actors was becoming even more intense. At the same time, former child stars often faced enormous pressure. Many struggled with public expectations. Some found it difficult to separate their personal identity from the characters that made them famous. Nancy appeared determined to avoid that trap. Instead of constantly seeking media attention, she focused on her work. She allowed her performances to speak for themselves. That decision may have limited her visibility compared to some celebrities, but it also gave her something many stars desperately seek: control over her own life. As the years passed, She continued accepting projects that interested her rather than projects designed simply to generate headlines. This approach reflected a deeper change. Her priorities were beginning to shift. Career success remained important, but it was no longer the only focus. Life outside Hollywood was becoming increasingly meaningful. While many celebrities embraced constant publicity, Nancy gradually stepped away from the spotlight. The decision surprised some fans. After all, she had spent much of her life in front of cameras. Yet those who followed her journey closely understood that she was creating a future based on personal fulfillment rather than public attention. This quieter approach also helped protect something many famous people struggle to maintain: privacy. The public often sees celebrities as permanently connected to fame. But behind every public figure is a private person with family, relationships, hopes, and concerns. Nancy increasingly embraced that private side of life. Meanwhile, her professional reputation remained strong. Industry colleagues respected her experience and professionalism. Producers knew they could depend on her. Directors appreciated her ability to bring authenticity to a role. Those qualities kept opportunities coming. Even when she was not constantly appearing in headlines, she remained active within the entertainment world. One of the most notable examples came when she joined the cast of the television drama The Division in 2001. The series introduced her to a new generation of viewers. For fans who remembered her from The Facts of Life, it was another reminder of her range as an actress. She was no longer the teenager audiences had first met decades earlier. She was a mature performer continuing to evolve. As footage from these years plays on screen, a clear pattern emerges. Nancy never seemed interested in being the most famous person in Hollywood. Instead, she focused on being a respected actress and building a meaningful life. That distinction mattered. While many careers rise and fall with changing trends, longevity often belongs to those who adapt. Nancy adapted. She accepted change. She embraced growth. Most importantly, she refused to let one role define her entire future. By the early 2000s, she had already accomplished something many former child stars never achieve. She had successfully navigated the difficult transition into adulthood while maintaining both her career and her reputation. Yet another important transformation was taking place. The farther she moved from the spotlight, the more curious fans became. People who had grown up watching her wanted to know what had happened to the actress they admired. Where was she now? What kind of life had she built? And why had she chosen a path so different from many of her Hollywood peers? Those questions would only grow stronger in the years ahead. Just when many assumed she had disappeared from public view, Nancy made a decision that surprised even longtime fans. By the time the 2000s were well underway, Nancy McKeon had already spent most of her life in the public eye. From childhood commercials to television stardom, cameras had followed her journey for decades. Yet while many celebrities continued seeking attention, Nancy was moving in the opposite direction. She was choosing a quieter life. For some fans, that decision seemed surprising. Hollywood often rewards visibility. The more people see a celebrity, the more opportunities usually appear. Many actors spend years trying to remain in headlines and maintain public interest. Nancy chose something different. She focused on family, personal happiness, and stability. As the years passed, she became increasingly selective about public appearances and acting projects. Instead of constantly being seen on television or in entertainment magazines, she spent more time building a life away from the pressures of celebrity culture. This was not a sudden decision. It was a gradual shift that reflected changing priorities. The young actress who once spent long days on television sets was now focused on creating balance. Family became an important part of that balance. While many details of her personal life remained private, it became clear that Nancy valued protecting the people closest to her from unnecessary public attention. In an era when celebrity lives were increasingly exposed through tabloids and entertainment news, that choice stood out. Privacy had become rare. Nancy worked hard to preserve it. As audiences look back on photographs and interviews from this period, a noticeable difference emerges. She appeared comfortable with her decisions. There was no obvious desire to chase fame. No visible effort to remain at the center of Hollywood conversations. Instead, there was a sense of contentment. That did not mean she abandoned acting. Far from it. Nancy continued accepting selected projects that interested her. She remained connected to the profession that had shaped her life. However, she no longer appeared driven by the need for constant exposure. The entertainment industry often changes quickly. New stars emerge every year. Trends come and go. Public attention shifts rapidly from one celebrity to another. Nancy seemed to understand this reality better than most. Rather than fighting against time, she embraced a different approach. She allowed life to evolve naturally. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening among audiences. Interest in her career was not fading. In fact, it was growing again. Television reruns introduced the facts of life to younger viewers who had never seen the show during its original run. Streaming services and digital platforms made classic television more accessible than ever before. A new generation discovered Jo Polniaczek. And with that discovery came renewed curiosity about Nancy McKeon herself. Fans who grew up watching the series felt nostalgic. Younger viewers became interested in the actress behind the character. Online discussions frequently asked the same questions. What was Nancy doing now? Why had she stepped away from the spotlight? What had her life become after television fame? Unlike many former stars who actively promoted themselves through social media and constant public appearances, Nancy remained relatively private. That mystery only increased public fascination. Occasionally, she would appear in interviews or special television events, giving audiences brief glimpses into her life. Each appearance generated excitement. Fans were eager to see her, eager to hear her thoughts, eager to reconnect with someone who had been an important part of their childhood memories. One particularly notable moment came when she participated in projects that allowed longtime viewers to revisit the legacy of the facts of life. These appearances reminded audiences of the lasting impact the show had created. Decades had passed, yet the affection remained strong. Very few television programs achieve that kind of longevity. Even fewer actors remain so warmly remembered. As the years moved forward, Nancy's legacy continued growing. Her career was no longer defined solely by current projects. Instead, it was built upon decades of work, memories, and connections with audiences. The character she portrayed had become part of television history. But Nancy herself had become something more. She represented a rare example of a child performer who successfully navigated fame, adulthood, and personal life without the public struggles that affected many others. That achievement deserves recognition. Many young stars face enormous challenges after early success. Some lose their direction. Some lose their privacy. Some lose themselves entirely. Nancy appeared to avoid those outcomes by staying grounded and focused on what mattered most to her. As archival images transition from her early acting years to more recent appearances, another reality becomes clear. Time had passed. The teenager audiences remembered had become a mature woman. The decades had brought change, growth, and experience. And as 2026 approached, fans everywhere were becoming increasingly curious about one question. What did Nancy McKeon look like today? After all those years away from constant public attention, many people were about to find out. But the biggest surprise was still ahead, as fans prepared to see what Nancy McKeon looked like in 2026. As 2026 arrives, Nancy McKeon stands at a remarkable point in her life. Nearly 6 decades have passed since her birth in 1966. More than 40 years have passed since she first became a familiar face to millions of television viewers. Yet despite the passing years, public interest in her story remains surprisingly strong. For many fans, Nancy is frozen in time. They remember the tough teenager in a leather jacket. They remember Jo Polniaczek walking the halls of Eastland School. They remember the young actress who became one of television's most recognizable faces during the 1980s. But time moves forward for everyone. Nancy McKeon is no exception. When recent images and appearances emerge, many fans experience a moment of surprise. Not because she looks unrecognizable, but because they are seeing the natural effects of a life fully lived. The young girl from New York has become a woman approaching her 61st birthday. The The transformation reflects decades of experiences, challenges, achievements, and personal growth. In a culture often obsessed with youth, celebrity aging can become a topic of endless discussion. Audiences sometimes expect stars to remain exactly as they appear during their most famous years. Of course, that is impossible. Life leaves its mark on everyone. What makes Nancy's story different is the way she appears to have embraced that reality. Rather than constantly seeking attention, she spent years building a life beyond public approval. While some celebrities remain trapped in a cycle of publicity and reinvention, Nancy followed a quieter path. That choice becomes visible when looking at her journey as a whole. The focus is no longer on fame. The focus is on fulfillment. Many fans who see her today are reminded of something important. The true measure of a person is not whether they remain unchanged. It is whether they continue growing while remaining true to themselves. Nancy appears to have done exactly that. As images from different decades appear side by side, viewers can see the progression of an entire life. Childhood photographs give way to commercial appearances. Commercial appearances lead to sitcom success. Sitcom success leads to adulthood, family life, and personal growth. Each stage tells part of the story. Each stage matters. The years have brought wisdom that cannot be captured by a camera. They have brought perspective that only experience can provide. And they have brought a legacy that extends far beyond a single television role. That legacy remains one of the most important aspects of Nancy's story. Even decades after the facts of life ended, audiences continue discovering the series. Streaming platforms have introduced classic television to younger generations. Fans who were not even born during the show's original run now watch the episodes and connect with the characters. Jo Polniaczek continues finding new audiences. As a result, Nancy's influence continues reaching people she has never met. That kind of lasting impact is rare. Television history is filled with forgotten programs and forgotten stars. Yet some performances remain alive long after the cameras stop rolling. Nancy's work belongs in that category. The affection audiences feel toward her has survived changing trends, technological revolutions, and the passage of time itself. There is also something inspiring about the way she handled success. Many former child stars faced public struggles as they entered adulthood. The transition can be difficult. Fame arrives early. Expectations become overwhelming. Privacy disappears. Nancy's path was different. While every life contains challenges, she largely avoided the dramatic public controversies that often dominate celebrity headlines. Instead, she built a reputation based on professionalism, consistency, and personal stability. That accomplishment may be one of her greatest achievements. As viewers reflect on her story, another realization emerges. The fascination with Nancy McKeon is not really about appearance. It is not about comparing photographs from different decades. It is not about measuring how much someone has changed over time. The real fascination comes from the journey itself. People are drawn to stories of resilience. They admire individuals who remain grounded despite success. They appreciate those who build meaningful lives beyond public recognition. Nancy's story contains all of those elements. At nearly 61, she represents something many people hope to achieve: a life defined not by a single moment of fame, but by decades of growth and purpose. The young actress who once chased auditions became a television icon. The television icon became a respected professional. The respected professional became a woman who chose family, privacy, and personal happiness over constant attention. That evolution tells a far richer story than any photograph ever could. Today, Nancy McKeon remains admired not simply because of who she was, but because of the life she built after the spotlight dimmed. After nearly 6 decades of life, Nancy McKeon's greatest achievement may not be her fame, but the life she created after it. Call to action. If you enjoyed this documentary story, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more fascinating journeys about legendary stars, unforgettable lives, and the stories behind the fame.